I splurged and spent $200,000. Kevin, who had vanished without attending his mother's funeral, had surprisingly traveled abroad alone. Why do you have as much as $200,000? Why? It's the grand piano from your family home. No one was using it, right? It was a waste, so I sold it. It was a rich family's home, so I thought there'd be a good piano. I never thought it would be worth $200,000 though. I had the inheritance rights to the family home. So it seems Kevin mistakenly believed the grand piano was mine. Kevin, you don't realize what you've done. Indeed, I had all the inheritance rights to our family home. But that grand piano was something very special, bought by my grandfather for my brother. Yes, the owner of that grand piano was my brother. He loved piano since he was young and is now working as a piano teacher. The grand piano Kevin sold had always been used by my brother. But since there was no space in his house, it was kept at our family home. My brother cherished that piano more than anything. He is strong-willed and hates dishonesty. Even though he hadn't used it for a while, he would be furious if he found out his possession was sold without his permission. Probably, even compensating him wouldn't be enough. When I told Kevin the truth, he panicked and hung up the phone. I am Sherry Williams, a 45-year-old company employee. My family home is well known in the local area, a prestigious household with a long history. With inherited wealth and my late father's successful business, our family assets exceed $9 million. Originally, my brother was supposed to inherit the house. But he renounced the inheritance to marry the woman he loved. His wife also came from a family that needed an heir. To marry her, he gave up inheriting our family home and renounced all inheritance. I worked hard to not rely on my family's wealth, and as a result, got a job at a top company. I've been single, focused on my career, but now I'm in my mid-40s. To continue the family line, I need to find a husband. With this in mind, I started participating in marriage activities. And at one of these matchmaking parties, I met Kevin, my current husband. He is 10 years younger than me but showed genuine interest in me despite the age difference. Are you sure? I'm 10 years older than you. I asked him repeatedly. But looking at me intently, Kevin replied, I like older, mature women. I'm introverted and unreliable. Indeed, he is modest and gentle, a stark contrast to my strong-willed family. That's why I thought he would be perfect for my family. However, as a partner, there was a fact about Kevin I had to share. My mother had been bedridden since last year, and my sister-in-law and I were taking turns caring for her. Wondering how to tell this to someone I was dating with the intention of marriage, I decided to open up on our third date. Kevin accepted this fact without a word and even proposed to me, saying he wanted to join in caring for her. I remember feeling happy about his kindness. But 4 months into our marriage, Kevin, a nursery school teacher, suddenly wanted to quit his job. Sherry, I'm really sorry. The nursery school constantly has complaints from parents. I've been trying my best, but I can't take it anymore. Given Kevin's nature, dealing with complaints must have been hard. Perhaps as his wife, I should have encouraged him to keep trying and find a solution. But considering his help with my mother's care, I couldn't say anything. I am currently 3 months pregnant. For the sake of our upcoming child, I want to maintain a good relationship with Kevin. However, my hopes were soon shattered. One day, as I was heading to the bedroom from the bath, I heard Kevin whispering on the phone. What he said shocked me. Yeah. They haven't found out that I've actually been unemployed all along. I told them the job as a nursery teacher was too hard and wanted to quit, and they believed it. The truth is, I haven't worked in 2 years. It seems he was talking to a friend. I heard a voice from the phone say, "Man, you're going to get it someday." Sherry's family is well known around here, and her parents are wealthy. When I found her at the matchmaking party, I almost jumped for joy. Well, she's in her mid-40s, and no one else was interested in her. I was deceived. All the kindness Kevin showed was just an act. I wanted to burst into the room and confront him, but thinking of the baby in my belly, I froze and couldn't say a word. Knowing Kevin's true nature, I couldn't help but feel uncertain about our future. I was supposed to take over caring for my mother from my sister-in-law in the evening. As I wondered whether I should talk to someone about Kevin, my sister-in-law spoke to me. "Sherry, you look so down. Is something bothering you? If you're in trouble, feel free to talk to me about anything." My sister-in-law is a kind-hearted person. With her experience caring for her own parents for years, she skillfully and meticulously cares for my mother. She is someone I trust deeply. I confided in her about Kevin. "I'm glad you talked to me. Keeping it to yourself can affect the baby." "Yes. I'm sorry for bringing up such a topic. This isn't easy. It doesn't seem like something that can be resolved quickly. But talking about it lightens your heart a bit, right? But what to do about this troubling situation?" She worried about my problems as if they were her own. Then the doorbell rang, and Kevin came into the house. We were startled for a moment, but Kevin entered the house with a smile, unaware of anything. "Hi. Sherry, I'll take over caring for your mother from today. It's a delicate time for our baby, so you shouldn't strain yourself." Kevin was his usual self, perfectly playing the role of a kind husband in front of me. "Thank you. Let me explain in detail about my mother's care." "No need, I'll learn from your sister-in-law. You just rest at home." "But, it's the day my brother is coming home early. And my sister-in-law needs to leave soon." As I said this, my sister-in-law looked me in the eyes and quietly shook her head as if to say, "It's okay." Maybe she would talk to Kevin in my absence. With that thought, I decided to follow her suggestion and go home. But I couldn't stop wondering what they would talk about. I pretended to leave the house but hid out of sight near the entrance. My sister-in-law tried to teach Kevin about caregiving, but he spoke first. "I've been wondering. Why do you care so much for your mother-in-law?" His voice was the same as when he was on the phone. "Because my husband is busy and can't come here. Sherry also has work, so we need to help each other." "Why do you ask that?" Then Kevin clicked his tongue and said harshly, "This family is wealthy. They have enough money to put her in a facility, right? Or is it because your husband renounced the inheritance? And you're trying to win favor by taking care of the mother-in-law? That makes sense. Marrying into a wealthy family but missing out on the inheritance must be frustrating." "What? Why would you say such awful things?" As anger welled up in me and I was about to step out, my sister-in-law, who noticed my presence, signaled with her eyes for me to stay hidden. So, reluctantly, I stayed quiet and watched. I knew it, right? If that's the case, then just leave already. No matter what you do, the wealth of this house belongs to me and my wife now. I'll take care of my mother-in-law alone from now on. Disappointed by Kevin's insensitive attitude, my sister-in-law left the scene. I quietly went outside without being noticed by Kevin and hurried to her. She must be deeply hurt. I didn't know how to redeem what my husband had done. And so, Kevin ended up taking care of my mother alone. I offered to help, but he adamantly refused, so I just taught him the basic procedures of care. However, after some time, due to Kevin's negligence, my mother passed away. The funeral for my mother was held at a large church where our ancestral graves are located. But after her death, Kevin suddenly disappeared. Of course, there was no way to contact him. While I thought I should find his whereabouts, I was too occupied with funeral preparations and procedures. Relatives and locals seemed to question the absence of my husband. My sister-in-law was sobbing in front of the altar, regretting entrusting the care to Kevin. I approached her and spoke softly. "Sister-in-law, don't be so hard on yourself. It's my fault. It's all our responsibility, my husband's and mine." "No, Sherry, you're not to blame." "But where did that man disappear to?" I wanted to confront him face to face, even if just for a word. And now he vanishes right after mother-in-law dies. Really, it's unbelievable. Moreover, Kevin was supposed to be caring for mom without working, but apparently, he was frequently going out. Where was he going? Neighbors mentioned they had seen Kevin leaving the family home during the day on several occasions. His demeanor didn't seem like he was earnestly caring. He looked more like unemployed going out to play every day. And once, a large truck had come to our house. A truck. Why? Although curious, I couldn't discuss it with anyone during the funeral. 3 days after the funeral, Kevin still hadn't returned. Then, I received a call from him on my smartphone. "Sherry. Listen, I'm staying at a luxury hotel in Europe." Hearing Kevin's carefree voice on the other end, I expressed my anger. "Europe? What are you doing? You didn't even come to mom's funeral." When I confronted him, Kevin gave an unexpected reply. "I splurged $200,000. Why do you have such a large sum of $200,000? Why? It's the grand piano from your family home. No one was using it, right? It was a waste, so I sold it. I knew a rich family's home would have a good piano. I didn't expect it to be worth $200,000, though." Kevin had sold our family's grand piano without permission. And was enjoying a trip to Europe with the money. That piano, a precious item my brother had begged my grandfather to buy, was indeed worth around $200,000. Kevin was staying in luxury hotels, the kind you see on TV, and had quickly spent the entire $200,000. I never imagined Kevin, whom I thought was caring for my mother, would do such a thing. Of course, our family home is highly secure, but for a family member, such security is almost non-existent. The truck the neighbors gossiped about must have been to transport the piano. How could you do something like that on your own? I can't believe it. Everyone was worried about your absence at the funeral. But, once the child is born, I won't have any freedom, right? When Sherry is working, I, a stay-at-home husband, will have to do all the housework and childcare. Hearing Kevin's response, my frustration turned into utter disbelief. It's great that Kevin is enthusiastic about childcare. But it seems he plans to keep relying on me and has no intention of working himself. Also, it appears Kevin believes the grand piano was mine too. All I could do was tell Kevin, who had sold the piano without knowing anything and used the money to have fun. "Kevin, you don't understand what you've done." "Huh? What do you mean?" Hearing his confused voice, I decided to tell him the truth about the piano. That piano was bought by our grandfather for my brother. So, it's not mine, it's my brother's. "Oh, really? Then, just make up some reason for your brother. That should settle it, right? Don't make it sound so serious." There was no sense of guilt in Kevin's voice for having sold someone else's property. He had only met my brother at our wedding and was unaware of his extremely strict nature. So, he didn't realize the gravity of what he had done. My brother has always loved the piano and works as a piano teacher now. The grand piano Kevin sold was always used by him, but since there was no space in his house, it was stored at our family home. My brother cherished that piano more than anything. He's strong-willed and hates dishonesty. Even though he hadn't used it for a while, he would be furious to know his possession was sold without permission. Probably, just compensating him wouldn't be enough. After explaining the situation in detail to Kevin, he just listened silently. Do you understand? Telling my brother that you sold his precious piano won't end well. He is uncompromising, and I can't even imagine what will happen now. The call suddenly ended after I said this. Kevin was undoubtedly perplexed. For now, I called my brother to explain the entire situation. Naturally, he was furious. The next day, Kevin hurried back home. He was surprised to see the family gathered in the living room as he entered. What's this? Everyone's here. I had anticipated Kevin's return and invited our relatives. My brother and his wife were, of course, seated there too. My brother approached Kevin with an angry look. Kevin, I heard from Sherry. What were you thinking? Selling my precious piano without even discussing it. Especially knowing it was valuable. Kevin, flustered by my brother's stern words, stumbled over his response. Well, brother, I started cleaning the house because I had free time while caring for your mother. I found this large grand piano that seemed old and unused. So, that was your reason for deciding to sell it? Yes. I thought it was a waste. I never saw anyone using it. Kevin attempted to justify himself. But his feeble defense did nothing to soften my brother's stern face. I see. That piano was a custom order from a famous European maker. Brought in by our grandfather when I was a child. So, what did you do with the money from the sale? Of course, my brother knew Kevin had spent the money on a trip abroad. But he pretended not to know, to make Kevin confess in front of the relatives. Kevin, looking panicked and at a loss for words, then had an idea. The proceeds. Actually, they haven't been deposited yet. When Kevin used that excuse, my brother's anger peaked. Hey. Don't lie. I didn't think you were that rotten. Still not deposited, you say? Then what about those European souvenirs in your suitcase? Kevin, looking like he had been struck by lightning, closed his eyes and held his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I spent all the money. This confession caused an uproar among all the relatives. Everyone was visibly shocked that Kevin had managed to spend $200,000 on a single trip. Knowing the value of the grand piano. My brother grabbed Kevin by the chin, not averting his eyes for a moment, and said, As you must have heard from Sherry, that was my piano. Since you sold it, you understand you need to fully compensate, right? If you can't, I'll sue you for theft. Are you okay with that? My brother was incredibly intimidating, almost like the boss of a mafia group. Normally, suing within the family is rare, but my brother likely said this to scare Kevin, who understood nothing. And as my brother anticipated, Kevin was speechless with fear upon hearing the threat of a lawsuit. He was trembling and sweating profusely. Then, in a frightened voice, he turned to me for help. Shh! Sherry. Help me. He begged pitifully, but unfortunately, there was nothing I could do. This is all the result of your own actions. It has nothing to do with me. However, Kevin, despite being at a loss, started to make excuses that only dug him deeper. Don't be so cold. I was taking care of your mother during your pregnancy, thinking of you. I just went on a brief lavish trip as a reward for myself. So, that piano, it's like we sold it together, right? Then your brother surely won't sue his own sister for theft. What are you talking about? I wonder what on earth this person is saying. I was so dumbfounded that I was left speechless and frozen in disbelief. At that moment, my sister-in-law stood beside me to throw me a lifeline. Enough is enough. What are you thinking? Didn't you tell Sherry that you would handle everything and not to come for the caregiving? And you had the nerve to drive me away, claiming I was after the inheritance for caring for your mother-in-law. Is that true? Hey, Kevin, you said such horrible things to my wife? I'm sorry, I didn't want to worry you, so I kept quiet until now. I think he planned to keep us away from the house to secretly sell the piano. I agreed with my sister-in-law's words. It became clear why he insisted on doing the caregiving alone and kept everyone else away from the house. Knowing Kevin's scheme, my brother's anger reached its peak and he interrogated him even more fiercely. Did you plan this from the start? My wife took over the caregiving because Mom didn't want to be in a facility. She offered to do it because she had experience caring for her parents. Forget the money for now. First, you need to beg forgiveness to my wife right here. Yes. Shaken by my brother, Kevin knelt in front of my sister-in-law with tears in his eyes and said deeply, I am truly sorry. Even as Kevin showed his sorry to my sister-in-law, the gathered relatives still looked at him coldly. Then, one of the relatives spoke to him sternly. Anyway, return the proceeds from the piano sale as soon as possible. We can't have a criminal in the Sherry Williams family, it would tarnish our reputation. Hearing my uncle's words, Kevin, misunderstanding something again, made another bizarre suggestion. Right. Brother-in-law, we can't become criminals. Let's end this discussion here. We'll save money as a couple and repay it little by little. My uncle was just dumbfounded by Kevin's nonsensical statement. It was clear that talking further with Kevin, who twisted things to suit himself, was pointless. Realizing this, I returned to the living room with something I had prepared since overhearing Kevin's phone call with his friend. It was a divorce petition. File this. This ends our relationship. Kevin was shocked to see the divorce petition, his face changing color. Why? We're about to have a baby. Why are you doing this? I exposed everything he had said to his friend in front of everyone. You heard that. That was just a joke. Don't take it seriously. A joke. I can't believe such an excuse now. I know you were after my inheritance from the start. The surrounding relatives were all looking at Kevin with eyes full of condemnation. Kevin, realizing there was no escape, became defiant. Damn it. What's this all about? I thought I was going to get my hands on $9 million. After we got married, I checked how much wealth your mother had left behind. His true colors were finally revealed. The people around were stunned by this complete turnaround in Kevin's attitude. Maybe I should have been suspicious about how smoothly our marriage went, despite the age difference of 10 years. Yet, believing we had married for love, I was deeply hurt by Kevin's words. I decided to demand compensation from him. Since Kevin was now a stranger to my brother, he also needed to compensate for the grand piano. Kevin broke down in tears, saying, "That's impossible." But with all the relatives present as witnesses, there was no way out for him. But don't worry. I won't ask for child support. That's a relief. I couldn't have afforded it. Instead, swear that you'll have nothing to do with this child. I'll never allow you to claim to be this child's parent. You have no connection to this child whatsoever. Kevin tried to argue against my declaration. What? But I'm the father. Obviously. Someone who deceives others for money doesn't deserve to be a father. I said that and left Kevin slumped in defeat. After our divorce, Kevin led a difficult life, doing part-time work as a live-in employee. One day, I received a call from Kevin on my cell phone. At first, I ignored it, but he was persistent, so I reluctantly answered. "Sherry, help me," Kevin pleaded with me in a pathetic voice. I listened to his story and learned that the buyer of the grand piano, which Kevin had sold without permission, was demanding a refund. Kevin had claimed that the piano was in perfect condition, without a single scratch. However, when my brother was young, he had carved his name on the back of the piano with a carving knife, and it was quite large. Kevin hadn't checked the back, and apparently, the buyer hadn't either. A reputable dealer would have prevented such trouble. Kevin had carelessly chosen a shoddy dealer. Now, Kevin was faced with the daunting task of refunding the entire $200,000. With payments due to my brother and compensation to me, his debts were substantial. Kevin begged for a deferral of the compensation payments. But of course, I refused such a selfish request. Later, Kevin tried to declare bankruptcy, but my brother and I legally prevented it. As a result, Kevin was burdened with huge debts and forced into hard labor. Meanwhile, the grand piano, more precious to my brother than life itself, was safely returned to him. My brother was relieved and took extreme measures to protect the piano. He installed a strong lock on the piano room and even set up security cameras. My brother declared, just as passionately as in his youth, "This grand piano won't be touched by anyone until my piano classes begin." I couldn't help but smile at my brother's unchanged passion. Knowing my brother dreamed of opening a piano school in our family home, I decided to discuss the division of our mother's estate again. I felt uncomfortable receiving all the inheritance, especially considering the effort my sister-in-law had put into caring for our mother. My brother agreed with my proposal, and it seemed our relationship would continue to be good. Time passed, and I gave birth to a long-awaited daughter. While some might have expected a son as the heir, in today's world, I believe a daughter can also cherish her family. My mother was an only child, and my father had been an adopted son-in-law. So, if needed, my daughter might follow the same path in the future. As a single mother, my sister-in-law, who had finished raising her children, offered me her full support, drawing on her various experiences. Whether it was caring for my mother or raising a child, I couldn't have managed without her help. My brother also declared, "I'll be the father figure for my niece." His daughters, influenced by their father's love for the piano, had become child care workers and adored my daughter. Supported by this warm family, I am endlessly grateful. Feeling happy in my current situation, I am determined to live strongly with my daughter.